In 2004, on the Indonesian island of Flores, archaeologists pulled a skeleton from a cave and discovered that hobbits were real, not fantasy, not metaphor, a human species, 3.5 feet tall, wrist bones like an Australopithecine, shoulders rotated forward like Homo erectus, feet long and flat like an ape, but walking upright, and the skull had a brain the size of a chimpanzee's, and yet stone tools, fire, coordinated hunts of dwarf elephants. This species should not have existed, and some people believe they still do. This is the old human, the forgotten humans. Imagine being 3 feet tall, weighing 55 pounds with a brain the size of a chimpanzee's, and choosing to hunt an elephant. Imagine looking up and seeing a Komodo dragon, 10 feet long, venomous, capable of bringing down water buffalo, and deciding that you are not prey. Homo Floresiensis lived on Flores Island for nearly 1 million years. They did not just survive, they thrived, and the local villagers have stories that say they never really went away. Last time on The Forgotten Humans, cave women were stronger than Olympic athletes, and the textbooks had been lying for 150 years. Today, something even stranger. A human species discovered in the 21st century. A species that was still walking the earth when modern humans arrived. A species whose bones are so strange that scientists are still arguing about where they fit on the human family tree. And a species that, according to the people who live on Flores, may still be alive. If you have watched other videos about Homo Floresiensis, you have seen the skeleton, heard about island dwarfism, and learned about the Hobbit nickname. This is that video, but it is also about the Ebu Gogo, the small, hairy people of Flores folklore whose description matches the fossils with eerie precision. It is about what it would mean if another human species were still alive, right now on an island in Indonesia, watching us from the forest. It is about the limits of what we think we know and the stories we dismissed as myth that turned out to be true. Liang Bua Cave, Flores Island, Indonesia, 2004. A joint Indonesian-Australian archaeological team had been digging for years, finding stone tools, animal bones, evidence of ancient human occupation. Then they found a skeleton, an adult, almost complete, and impossibly small. The skull was the size of a grapefruit. The femur was shorter than a ruler, but the teeth were worn. This was not a child. This was a fully grown adult human who stood 3 feet 6 inches tall. The bones were confusing. The wrist was archaic, shaped like an Australopithecine from 3 million years ago. The shoulders were rotated forward like Homo erectus from 1.5 million years ago. The feet were long and flat, ape-like proportions, not human-like. And yet the big toe was in line with the others, adapted for walking upright. This was not a diseased modern human. This was not a pygmy population of Homo sapiens. This was a new species, a ghost from the deep past who had somehow survived into the recent past. They named it Homo Floresiensis, the human from Flores. But the world called it the Hobbit, and the dates were the most shocking part. The bones were only about 50,000 years old, meaning these creatures were still alive when modern humans arrived in the region. We walked the same island. We may have met them. We may have traded with them, fought with them, told stories about them. And then, shortly after we arrived, the hobbits disappeared. Why were they so small? The answer is a biological rule called Foster's rule, also known as the island rule. On islands with limited resources and few predators, large animals tend to shrink over generations, while small animals tend to grow larger. A full-sized elephant arriving on an island becomes a dwarf elephant over thousands of generations. A full-sized Homo erectus, the likely ancestor, arrived on Flores and became the Hobbit. The island shaped them, miniaturized them, optimized them for a world where everything was smaller, except the dragons. How did a full-sized human get to Flores in the first place? Nearly 1 million years ago, long before Homo sapiens existed, A group of Homo erectus somehow crossed the ocean to reach this island. Whether by accident, swept out to sea on natural rafts of vegetation, or by deliberate boat building, we do not know. But they arrived, and the island changed them. Over thousands of generations, their bodies shrank, their brains shrank, but their technology did not. Flores was a miniature world. Dwarf elephants called stegodons, the size of modern cows, grazed in the forests. Giant rats the size of dogs scavenged for food. And Komodo dragons, the largest venomous lizards on Earth, 10 feet long, capable of killing animals many times their size, hunted in the shadows. In the middle of this ecosystem, a 3-foot human made stone tools, built fires, and survived. For 1,000,000 years. Pause for a moment. Every video about Homo Floresiensis shows you the skeleton. Almost none of them tell you the most extraordinary part of this story. The people who live on Flores today, the villagers, the farmers, the grandmothers telling stories to their grandchildren, have legends about a small, hairy, human-like creature that lived in the forests. They call it the Ebu Gogo, the grandmother who eats everything, and the description matches the fossils with a precision that is difficult to dismiss. The Ebu Gogo. In the Naj language of Central Flores, Ebu means grandmother, and Gogo means one who eats anything. They were said to be ravenous, swallowing food whole, shells and all. The villagers described them as about 3 feet tall, covered in hair, walking upright on 2 legs with broad faces, flat noses, and long arms. They could mimic human speech, repeating words back like parrots, but could not form their own sentences. They walked with a strange, bow-legged gait. Every detail matches what we know from the Homo Floresiensis fossils. The stories say the Ebu Gogo would come into villages at night and steal food from gardens and kitchens. The villagers tolerated them. They were more nuisance than threat until the day an Ebu Gogo stole a human baby. According to the legend, the villagers tracked them to a cave. They piled brush at the entrance and set it on fire. The Ebu Gogo inside, men, women, children, were all killed. The few who escaped fled deeper into the forest and were never seen again. But the stories persist. The cave in the story is believed to be Liang Bua, the very cave where the Homo Floresiensis fossils were found. The villagers say this happened only a few hundred years ago, not 50,000. If their oral history is accurate, Homo Floresiensis did not go extinct when the fossil record says they did. They survived, in small numbers, hiding in the deepest forests, into the modern era. They may have survived into the lifetime of the grandparents of people who are alive today. There have been reported sightings on Flores as recently as the 1990s. Small, hairy humanoids glimpsed at the edge of forests, footprints found in mud, strange sounds heard at night. The Indonesian government has received multiple reports over the decades. Most scientists are skeptical, as scientists should be. But the Ebu Gogo stories are too widespread across Flores, too consistent in their details, and too precisely matched to the fossil evidence to dismiss casually. The people of Flores have been telling the same story for generations. Maybe it is time to listen. Here's the paradox that keeps scientists up at night. Homo floresiensis had a brain the size of a chimpanzee's, about 400 cubic centimeters. A modern human brain is about 1,350 cubic centimeters, more than 3 times larger, and yet, the stone tools found at Liang Bua are not crude. They are carefully made, using the same knapping techniques as full-sized humans. They show evidence of planning, skill, and transmission of knowledge across generations. You cannot make these tools by accident. You cannot make them without understanding what you are doing. The stone tools tell us something uncomfortable. Brain size is not the same as intelligence. You do not need a large brain to make sophisticated tools, to hunt cooperatively, to use fire, to survive on an island of dragons. Homo floresiensis did all of these things, with a brain smaller than a chimpanzee's. And if brain size does not determine intelligence, then everything we thought we knew about the relationship between anatomy and cognition needs to be re-examined. They hunted in groups. A dwarf elephant, even a small one, is far larger and more dangerous than a single 3-foot human. This required communication, coordination, and planning. They likely used spears. Evidence of hafted tools suggests they were attaching sharpened stone points to wooden shafts. Chimpanzees hunt, but they do not make spears. They do not coordinate complex group strategies. They do not pass hunting techniques across generations through teaching. Homo Floresiensis did all of this, with 1/3 of our brain capacity. The bones tell us they lived here for 1 million years. The tools tell us they were intelligent. The stories tell us they may have survived into the modern era. But the question nobody asks is the most important one. What would it mean if they were still alive? What would it mean to share the planet with another human species? Right now, today, imagine. You are sitting in a village on Flores Island. The sun has set. You hear a sound from the forest, something moving, something watching. You look toward the trees, and standing there at the edge of the light is a 3-foot human, not an animal, not a hallucination, another species of human looking back at you. What do you do? What does it mean? Philosophically, legally, morally, if another human species were discovered alive today, would they have rights? Would they be protected by international law? Would we study them, or would we cage them? These are not abstract questions. They are the questions we will face if Homo Floresiensis is ever found alive. And they are questions we should think about now, before the discovery, not after. The world is not fully explored. There are forests in Indonesia so dense that no scientist has ever walked through them. There are cave systems that have never been mapped. There are islands that have never been properly surveyed. The coelacanth, a fish thought to have gone extinct 66 million years ago, was found alive in 1938. The mountain gorilla was considered a myth by Western science until 1902. The saula, a forest antelope, was unknown to science until 1992. The planet still has secrets. If Homo Floresiensis survived, Flores is where they would be. When Homo sapiens arrived on Flores around 50,000 years ago, they would have met the Hobbits, a modern human, 5 to 6 feet tall, with complex language, advanced tools, and the ability to plan across generations, standing face to face with a 3-foot human who had lived on that island for nearly 1 million years. We will never know what that meeting looked like, whether it was peaceful or violent, whether there was trade or terror, whether the hobbits looked at us and saw gods or monsters. The youngest Homo Floresiensis fossils are roughly 50,000 years old, right around the time modern humans arrived in the region. The fossil record suggests a pattern. Wherever Homo sapiens appeared, the other human species disappeared. Neanderthals in Europe, Denisovans in Asia, and, if the fossil dates are correct, the Hobbits on Flores. We did not just meet our cousins, we replaced them, every single one, or so we thought. The last known Homo Floresiensis died in a cave on Flores. No one recorded their name. No one wrote down their language. No one preserved their stories. They had been on that island for almost 1 million years, one of the most successful human species in history, and then they were gone, silent. Except, maybe they were not silent. Maybe the Ebu Gogo stories are their voice. Maybe the villagers who describe them with such precision are carrying a memory that science dismissed as myth. Maybe the hobbits are still out there, waiting to be found. Homo Floresiensis scores almost perfectly. Survival on an island of dragons for 1 million years, 10 out of 10. Cooperative hunting of dwarf elephants with a chimp-sized brain, 9. Sophisticated stone tool manufacturing, 9. The sheer courage of being 3 feet tall and choosing to fight rather than hide, 10. Endurance as a species, 10. And the mystery, the question of whether they are still alive, 10. Total, 58 out of 60. What we actually know about them scores much lower. We have bones, but only a few individuals, and the DNA has been damaged by the tropical climate. We have tools, but we cannot fully reconstruct their culture. We have one cave site, but they must have lived across the whole island, and we have stories, 8 out of 10 for the Ebu Gogo Legends, which match the fossil evidence with uncanny precision. Total of what we know, 12 out of 60. The Hobbit is real. The mystery is how much we have yet to discover. Tolkien's hobbits worried about second breakfast, elevenses, luncheon, afternoon tea, dinner, and supper. They lived in comfortable holes with round doors and pantries. The real hobbits of Flores hunted dwarf elephants with sharpened sticks, faced down Komodo dragons, and survived volcanic eruptions. Bilbo Baggins had a magic ring and a wizard for backup. Homo Floresiensis had a rock and absolute refusal to die. Respectfully, one of these stories is more impressive than the other, and it is not the one with the dragon made of CGI. You could visit Flores today. You could fly to Bali, take a short flight to Labuan Bajo, hire a guide, and visit Liang Bua Cave, the exact spot where the Hobbit fossils were found. You could take a selfie. You could post it on Instagram. And 50 feet into the forest beyond the cave, a 3-foot human could be watching you, and you would never know, because you are not looking, because you have been told they are extinct, because the sign at the cave says Homo Floresiensis lived here 50,000 years ago, and you believed it. Let us update the chalkboard. 2 episodes of The Forgotten Humans. The Cave Women, checked. The Hobbits, checked. Next, the strangest species of all. The one we have never seen. The one we found not through bones, but through DNA. The ghost humans. In the Forgotten Humans Museum, the Hobbit exhibit, Liang Bua Cave, where the bones were found. The miniature world of Flores, dwarf elephants and giant rats and Komodo dragons. The Ebu Gogo Legend, the story that science dismissed and then had to reconsider. The stone tools that prove a small brain can be a brilliant brain. The tiny skull that rewrote the human family tree. There's a frame labeled The Unanswered Question. It shows the dark forest beyond Liang Bua Cave and a pair of small eyes reflecting the light. Watching, waiting. Are they still out there? The people of Flores say yes. The bones say maybe. The mystery says, keep looking. The Forgotten Humans teaches us 3 things about Homo Floresiensis. 1. The human family tree is bigger and stranger than we imagined. We shared this planet with other humans, not just Neanderthals, not just Denisovans, but tiny hobbits who lived on an island of dragons for 1,000,000 years. The story of humanity is not a single line. It is a forest. 2. Brain size is not intelligence. Homo Floresiensis had a brain the size of a chimpanzee's, and they made tools, hunted elephants, used fire, and survived dragons. If brain size does not determine intelligence, then what does? The Hobbits are forcing us to ask better questions about what it means to be human. 3. The world is not fully explored. The people of Flores have been telling stories about the Ebu Gogo for centuries. Stories that match the fossil evidence with eerie precision. Sometimes the locals know things that science has not yet confirmed. If you want to find the next human species, listen to the people who have been saying they are there all along. Next time on The Forgotten Humans, a single pinky finger bone found in a cave in Siberia in 2008. No one knew what it was. It sat in a drawer for 2 years. Then geneticists sequenced its DNA and discovered something that should not exist, an entirely new human species, one we had never found a skeleton for, one we had never seen, one whose DNA is inside you right now, giving you abilities you did not know you had. The Denisovans, the ghost humans. Next time, they found a 3-foot human in a cave. They found cave women who were stronger than Olympic athletes, but the next species they never found a body, just a finger bone and a ghost in the DNA, the Denisovans. The humans we discovered without ever seeing their face. Next time on The Forgotten Humans. If you made it this far, you now know that hobbits were real. A 3-foot human species lived on an Indonesian island, hunted dwarf elephants, faced down Komodo dragons, and may, according to the people who still live there, have survived into the modern era. The world is stranger than the textbooks told you, and the story is not finished. Subscribe. This is the old human, the forgotten humans. They were here for 1,000,000 years. Maybe they still are. The Denisovans, the ghost in your DNA, next time.